I love it when Hunt Showdown gets a nice boost in popularity, whether it's from an upcoming event or big name streamers just brought tons of new eyes to the bayou. It's just nice to see all of those white shirts out there. And no, I'm not gonna go tank my MMR so I can hunt down those fresh meat. Instead, I put together a guide, and this guide should hopefully bring you, from being a new player, up to speed with all of the veterans. Now, for those of you who are not sure why you should get Hunt Showdown, let me explain the basics. Hunt is designed as a PvE experience, where you go into a map, you explore around a bit, you hunt down some monsters, and you claim their tokens. Those tokens are then exchanged for cash, which you can use to buy more cool guns and lots of equipment that will help you get even more bounties. But wait, you're saying, I thought this was supposed to be a hardcore PvP shooter. Yeah, I'm getting to that bit, come on. You see, the beauty of Hunt Showdown is, there is no reward at all for killing other players. Instead, the game is forcing you to do it out of necessity. See, if someone out there has got your meal ticket, you're gonna have to take it by force. Now, for beginner players, this landscape might seem a bit too hard to overcome. Trust me, there's ways to adapt. Now, for new players, there are 3 aspects that you need to work on. Your movement, listening to the environment, and understanding your weapons. Now, let's get started. Hunt Showdown isn't like other shooters. Sometimes you can go up to about 10 minutes without actually seeing another player on the map. You spend the majority of your time just moving between compounds looking for clues and trying to figure out where the other players are. But just because the games are slow paced, it doesn't mean that you're safe at the beginning of a match. The first thing you should do is check the map, look at your spawn point, and see the roads that surround you. Those other roads are potential spawn points for other teams. So don't get tunnel vision for the clues, try to stay out of dark sight, and look around for other players before approaching the compound. Aside from being on edge at all times, you can also use other factors to determine where players are. Every game has a max of 12 players, usually split into 4 or 6 teams depending if you chose duos or trios. If it's a split bounty, these teams should usually be equally split on each side. Once you've taken your first clue, a number of compounds will be removed from the map. Those same compounds will be removed for any other player that has taken a clue on your side. The map should usually shrink in a way that keeps the boss layer somewhere around the centre, so you can start to ignore most compounds that don't follow the flow. In this example, it looks like the boss layer should be somewhere within these 3 compounds. Now, with this information in mind, we can start to plot out routes to these compounds from every other starting point on the map. After taking the second clue, we can see that the bottom left hand corner of the map has never been removed, so we can safely assume that the boss is in Fort Bolden. Since we never ran into any other teams on our way to the second clue, we can also remove some spawn locations from our previous tracker, and plot a more concise route. With this information, we can assume that we're not going to be the first team to reach the boss. Also, when you reach your second or third clue, be sure to check if it's already been taken. A taken clue has a black hole in the centre instead of that fine white crust on top. Taken clues let you know that you're following behind another team, and they're probably closer to finding the boss than you are. When you're out there moving in the bayou, always move with cover between you and your destination. Cover is usually broken down into 2 categories. You've got your hard cover, and you've got your soft cover. Hard cover is anything that can take a bullet for you. So instead of just running down the main road like a maniac, you should really jump between the train carts, dirt mounds, and scope out your location before approaching it. You do this just in case you do actually get shot. This gives you an opportunity to run back to cover, heal yourself up before re-engaging. Soft cover is just stuff that visually obscures you from other players. Now, this is not going to save you from some high-skilled players that are literally 1 inch away from their monitor, but it usually should instill doubt long enough that you can get into position. Now in this clip, you can see that I'm moving with the bush between myself and the window in the compound. This bush is obscuring my hunter completely from the vision of anyone inside. This allows me to get into position and take the first shot. Now, while not being seen is great and all, but there needs to be a balance between stealth and action. If you're a new player, it's highly likely you're a crouch walker. Yeah, that's right, we have a name for you. You see, stealth is a great way to sneak up on other players, but if you're out there crouching in the middle of the open, all you're doing is just making it much easier for other players to get a headshot on you. See, crouching should be reserved for situations where you just want to hear something over the sound of your own footsteps. For example, if you hear an enemy team all running past you, or if they're engaging in a gunfight. Crouching is a great way to sneak up on them over the sounds that they're already making. See, some advanced players, they can hear you crouch walking regardless of the situation. But, just because they can hear you, doesn't mean they're good at shooting you. Sometimes the best course of action is just to rush the enemy player and try and catch them off guard. The sound in this game is next level, and I highly recommend you get a good headset so that you can actually hear all of it. It lets you know player positions, what guns they're using, and what they had for breakfast that morning. When you're trying to track players across the map, sound is much better than sight. So in case you haven't noticed, players are really hard to see in this game, and usually by the time you've seen them, they've already seen you. The most common sounds you should be on the lookout for is the sound of mob aggro. Try to learn the unique sounds that each mob makes in the game. For example, if you hear an immolator making a scream in a compound, you might want to try and... As I was saying, if you hear an immolator making some sound in a compound, now is a really good time to rush the enemy team and hopefully make them lose some health chunks. Now if you hear this obnoxiously loud barking in a compound, you now know the exact location of where the players are. Would you shut up? You see, dog cages and chicken cages are in the exact same positions every time you load into the game, but whether or not they're occupied is a totally different matter. So with this in mind, you need to manage the amount of sound that you make during a game, so not to give too much information to the enemy teams. Outside of the regular sounds that you usually make in the game, here's some examples of some sounds that you probably didn't know that your opponent can also hear. So yeah, veteran players will have no problem hearing you scratching your ass in the other building and drop a nade straight in your face. Now, if you really want to push your sound game to the next level, I recommend learning the sounds that guns make and how it changes over distance. And there's this really cool feature that's hidden away in the game menus that lets you find out those sounds without having to do it in a live fight. Simply jump into the 3D model viewer, scroll on out, and now you can fire the weapon at any distance and figure out exactly what that sounds like. Now, obviously, I can't gift you the ability of lightning-fast reflexes or amazing hand-eye coordination, but what I can do is show you how to use your weapons properly and teach you the basics of combat. Bullets don't have a parabolum input. Instead, they have all these unique properties that you need to learn for each weapon. First of all, we have effective range, and this is the maximum distance it can travel to perform a one-shot headshot. Muzzle velocity is the amount of time it takes for the bullet to travel from the gun to the target. This means that the slower the velocity, the longer you're going to have to lead the shot to hit a moving target. Rate of fire is how long it takes to chamber the next bullet before you can fire again. Reload speed, on the other hand, is how long it takes to empty out all the bullets from your gun and replace them with fresh ones. You see, most bullets will kill in one shot if you're accurate enough, but if you miss, the time between shots can be a matter of life and death. You also need to learn to play against certain weapon types. If you hear that signature sound of a shotgun blast, assume the other players are going to be holding corners, camping inside of buildings, so don't push that compound unless you really know that you're going to win. The same idea applies if you hear long ammo rifles. Assume the players are going to be on the high ground, like in windows or on the roof, to try and get you at range. Keep in mind, if you hear players engaged in combat, they don't have to be the only players in the area. If you're approaching a team that's currently banishing a boss, don't assume that you need to focus on them, because it's highly likely that there are other teams doing the exact same thing that you're doing just to your side. When you're holding an angle, try to make yourself as difficult a target as possible. Use strafe movement to try and avoid fire or at least limit the damage that can be done to you. Also, if you've taken a hit, just reposition as soon as you can. And whatever you do, please never re-peek. In this game, you can only ever take like a maximum of 2 body shots, so if you're staying in the same position, all you're doing is giving the enemy player a massive advantage. One of the main things you're going to have to learn is prioritizing self-healing and rezzing over killing opponent players, because it's always better to have more hunters alive on your team than it is to have dead hunters on their team. Try to fight from cover as often as possible, because if you're downed, your team wants to res you mid-combat. If your body's lying out in the open, they're going to have to win this entire fight at a disadvantage before they can res you. Now, players are not the only thing you need to be aware of during a fight, because mobs can ruin your life if you let them. It's often in your best interest to deal with all of the mobs before engaging in a fight, because there's nothing worse than clutching a 1v3 and then a pack of dogs decides to eat your face at the last second. Now, here's a quick example on how to approach these situations. Here we have a player trying to sneak up on us for the perfect shot, but he ignored the hive to his side. When the hive triggers, we're alerted to his presence, and now he has to deal with us, along with a swarm of bees in his face. If the player decides to kill the hive first, we still know that he's behind us, but at least now he's in a better standing for the fight that's coming. There are many different types of ammo in Hunt Showdown. I mean, like, many. But for now, let's just go over the standard ammo types, and the weapons that use them. Compact ammo usually has a lower damage output, but a higher rate of fire. This ammo type struggles to penetrate most light cover. It can go through planks of wood, but at further range the damage drop-off is too high to be of any use. The main benefit here is that guns are cheap and they come with a hell of a lot of ammo. They're perfect for players who feel they need more than one shot to take a hunter down. Medium ammo, as the name suggests, is that small ground between compact and long ammo. These bullets come with higher damage and a longer effective range than compact ammo, and can easily penetrate light cover. If you've got decent accuracy and you can manage the bullet speed, these guns are a great budget alternative to long ammo. Now with long ammo, you've got a high amount of damage and you've got a massive effective range. The only downside to these guns are the longer reload speeds and the lower rate of fire. Long ammo can break through pretty much any kind of cover, apart from large trees. Now these are the guns for players who have perfect aim and are confident in headshotting. These guns are extremely pricey, and usually come with only a handful of bullets, so make those shots count. Shotgun ammo is for the players who love to risk it all. These guns fire a spread of buckshot that can usually kill people in one shot, even if it hits them in the chest. Shotguns have the same bullet penetration as light ammo, but they have a higher spread, allowing you more chances to hit. The effective range is so short though that you run the risk of just getting stabbed or counter shotgun. Bullet damage can be very RNG, and shots that hit limbs usually do little to no damage. Now there are plenty of other ammo types out there, so once you feel confident with the basics, feel free to expand your horizons and try everything else the game has to offer. You see, the beauty of Hunt Showdown is, every loadout is actually viable. As it stands the fact that I've probably killed more people with the standard knife than I have with the Dolch. So my recommendation to you is, find a loadout that you love, and keep playing it. Over time, you'll get down the effective range and the muzzle velocity for every gun that you love, and it'll just become like muscle memory. You'll be head clicking in no time. So hopefully this guide will help you in some way. I've gone over the basics, but it's up to you to put the effort in and really push for that higher level. So until next time, I look forward to seeing you out there in the bayou.